When two INFJs meet, something shifts in the psychological landscape that most people never notice. Society sees INFJs as gentle empaths, the quiet helpers who avoid conflict and fade into backgrounds. What they miss is the strategic intelligence operating beneath that soft exterior. INFJs aren't just feeling their way through life. They're pattern recognition systems, constantly analyzing human behavior, social dynamics, and hidden motivations. Now imagine what happens when two of these systems sync up and start sharing data. The statistical rarity alone is staggering. With INFJs representing roughly 1 to 3% of the population, the odds of two crossing paths and connecting are astronomical. But when it happens, the psychological amplification creates something that can reshape entire social environments from the shadows. The question isn't whether this connection is powerful. It's whether that power becomes constructive or dangerous. But there is a specific reason why this connection often becomes a psychological trap. And it starts with a protocol most people don't even know they're running. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you're looking for a deeper understanding of yourself and your INFJ personality, browse our favorite INFJ products in the description, and click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. The recognition protocol. When two systems detect each other. The moment two INFJs lock eyes, something extraordinary happens that defies easy explanation. Both individuals experience what researchers call instant recognition. Not the kind where you think someone looks familiar, but a deeper systemic acknowledgement. Their internal pattern recognition software immediately detects another operating system running the same psychological architecture. It's like two advanced computers recognizing compatible hardware and initiating an automatic sync protocol. Within seconds, both INFJs are simultaneously scanning each other on multiple frequencies. They're reading micro-expressions, energy signatures, and the subtle tells that reveal authentic versus performed behavior. What they discover is revolutionary. Here's someone who isn't wearing the standard social mask. The carefully constructed personas that INFJs present to navigate an extroverted world become instantly transparent to each other. This recognition triggers an immediate end to one of the most exhausting aspects of INFJ existence: constant social translation. For years, both have been mentally converting their complex internal experiences into simplified language that others can understand. They've learned to tone down their insights, moderate their intensity, and present digestible versions of their authentic selves. Suddenly, that translation software can go offline. The cognitive resources, typically devoted to people-pleasing and social adaptation, get redirected toward environmental analysis and genuine connection. The relief is intoxicating. Both INFJs experience what feels like taking off armor they didn't realize they'd been wearing. Now, this relief of being seen feels like a miracle. But most people miss the next detail, and it's the exact reason why this sanctuary eventually turns into a prison. Conversations skip past surface-level pleasantries and dive directly into existential questions, personal philosophies, and the kind of deep analysis that would overwhelm most people within minutes. Time distorts as they engage in marathon discussions that feel effortless despite their complexity. What's happening neurologically is fascinating. Mirror neurons, the brain cells responsible for empathy and emotional contagion, begin firing in unprecedented synchronization. Each INFJ's emotional intelligence gets amplified through feedback loops with the other's responses. When one picks up on a subtle social dynamic, the other validates and expands on that insight. Pattern recognition doubles in effectiveness as both systems cross-reference observations and confirm impossible intuitions that others typically dismiss. The addictive quality of this connection becomes apparent quickly. Both INFJs have spent their lives feeling like aliens trying to blend in with human society. Finding someone who speaks their native psychological language creates a dependency that borders on gravitational. They want to spend every available moment together, text constantly when apart, and struggle when circumstances force separation. The connection becomes this magnetic force, pulling them together with increasing intensity. However, this recognition protocol also establishes dangerous precedents. Both INFJs begin operating under the assumption that the other person reads signals with the same accuracy they do. They start communicating in increasingly subtle codes, expecting intuitive understanding instead of explicit communication. What feels like telepathic connection can actually be two people making different assumptions about the same ambiguous signals. The recognition creates such profound relief and validation that both parties become invested in maintaining it at all costs. Neither wants to risk disturbing this precious sanctuary they found. This sets up patterns of conflict avoidance and people-pleasing within the relationship itself, the very behaviors they thought they could finally abandon. The recognition protocol that initially feels like liberation can become its own form of psychological prison. Echo chamber idealism, when shared vision becomes dangerous. Certainty. Now this next part is where things get interesting. Because when two INFJs agree on the truth, they stop looking for it. Once two INFJs establish their connection, something subtly dangerous begins to emerge from their shared worldview. Both individuals typically arrive at this relationship carrying similar values, a deep concern for humanity's well-being, frustration with society's superficiality, and a vision for how the world could be better. When these parallel belief systems start reinforcing each other, the validation feels like discovering absolute truth. The problem isn't that their values are wrong. INFJs often possess genuinely insightful perspectives on social problems and human nature. The danger lies in how shared conviction can calcify into unquestioned certainty. Without external reality checks or dissenting viewpoints, their idealistic visions can become disconnected from practical constraints and unintended consequences. This echo chamber effect develops gradually and feels completely natural. One INFJ expresses frustration about societal injustice, and the other not only agrees, but expands on the critique with additional evidence and emotional validation. Their shared analysis feels so comprehensive, so emotionally resonant, that questioning it seems unnecessary. Why seek other perspectives when you found someone who finally understands the truth you've been seeing all along? The moral superiority complex that emerges from this dynamic is particularly insidious because it's built on genuine care and authentic insights. Both INFJs begin to see themselves as society's conscience, the awakened few who can perceive what the sleeping masses cannot. Their ability to read between the lines, spot hidden motivations, and predict social patterns gets interpreted as evidence of their elevated understanding. They become convinced that their shared vision represents a higher form of consciousness. This sense of moral authority can manifest in increasingly problematic ways. The INFJ duo starts viewing disagreement not as legitimate difference of opinion, but as evidence of others' moral blindness or intellectual limitations. People who don't share their values aren't just different, they're part of the problem. The nuanced thinking that INFJs are capable of gets replaced by rigid categorization of people and ideas into enlightened versus unenlightened camps. Their idealistic crusades, while often well-intentioned, can become disconnected from real-world complexity. They develop elaborate theories about how society should function without adequately considering implementation challenges, competing priorities, or the messy compromises that actual change requires. Their shared certainty makes them resistant to feedback that might refine or moderate their positions. The us versus the world mentality that develops serves to further isolate them from diverse perspectives. Other people's concerns get dismissed as small-minded or selfish. Alternative approaches get rejected without serious consideration because they don't align with the duo's purified vision. The very empathy that makes INFJs effective helpers can become weaponized into judgmental superiority toward those who don't meet their moral standards. What makes this echo chamber particularly dangerous is how it masquerades as wisdom. The depth of their conversations, the sophistication of their analysis, and the intensity of their conviction all feel like evidence that they've transcended ordinary thinking. They mistake the comfort of confirmation for the rigor of truth-seeking. Everything I've just told you about their shared vision won't matter if you don't understand the mirror effect. This next step is what literally determines if the relationship survives or self-destructs. The antidote requires conscious effort to seek out challenging perspectives, engage with people who disagree respectfully, and maintain intellectual humility about their conclusions. Two INFJs can maintain their shared values while still subjecting their ideas to external scrutiny and remaining open to course corrections based on new information or unintended consequences. Emotional fusion and boundary collapse. The codependent mirror. The empathic abilities that make INFJs exceptional counselors and friends become a double-edged sword when two of them enter into close relationship. What starts as beautiful emotional attunement gradually morphs into something more dangerous, a complete fusion of emotional experiences that erases the boundaries between self and others. INFJs possess what researchers call affective empathy. They don't just understand what others are feeling, they literally experience those emotions in their own nervous systems. Their mirror neurons work overtime, creating visceral experiences of other people's emotional states. It's simultaneously a gift that enables profound healing and a burden that can lead to emotional overwhelm. When two people with this level of empathic sensitivity connect, they create a feedback loop that amplifies every feeling exponentially. The process begins innocently enough. One INFJ has a difficult day at work, feeling drained and frustrated. The other immediately picks up on this energy shift, not through verbal communication, but through the subtle changes in body language, tone, and presence that their finely tuned emotional radar detects automatically. Instead of simply offering support, they begin absorbing that frustration into their own system. Within hours, both are carrying the same emotional burden. It sounds like the ultimate intimacy, right? Wrong. This next detail changes everything about how we view empathy in a duo. This empathic absorption creates what psychologists call emotional quicksand. The more both partners struggle with shared feelings, the deeper they sink together. One person's anxiety becomes amplified through the other's empathic response, which then gets reflected back in an endless loop of escalating emotional intensity. A minor worry transforms into shared catastrophizing. A moment of sadness becomes mutual depression. The boundaries between individual emotional experiences begin to blur in ways that feel romantic, but are actually psychologically dangerous. Both INFJs lose track of whose feelings belong to whom. Am I anxious about this situation, or am I picking up on your anxiety? Becomes a daily navigation challenge. Is this genuine sadness, or am I just mirroring your mood? The questions multiply, but clear answers become increasingly elusive. Individual identity starts dissolving as both partners become we instead of two distinct I's. They stop having separate emotional experiences and begin functioning as a single emotional unit. While this might sound like the ultimate intimacy, it actually prevents both individuals from developing healthy emotional regulation skills and authentic self-expression. The conflict avoidance that both INFJs struggle with individually gets amplified exponentially in this dynamic. Neither wants to disturb the precious emotional harmony they've created. Disagreements feel like threats to their merged identity rather than normal relationship dynamics. Both partners walk on eggshells, suppressing authentic reactions that might create ripples in their emotional fusion. People-pleasing tendencies multiply as each INFJ becomes hypervigilant about maintaining the other's emotional equilibrium. They stop expressing needs that might cause distress, stop sharing perspectives that might create tension, and stop being authentically themselves in favor of being whatever maintains emotional peace. The very authenticity that drew them together gets sacrificed to preserve their codependent merger. This emotional fusion prevents the individual growth that healthy relationships should foster. Instead of two people supporting each other's development while maintaining separate identities, they become emotionally conjoined twins who can't function independently. The relationship becomes less about two individuals choosing to be together and more about two halves desperately trying to maintain their sense of completeness through the other person. The burnout loop, when two healers can't heal each other. The cruel irony of two INFJs in relationship becomes apparent when both partners simultaneously attempt to heal each other's deep-rooted psychological patterns. Both individuals typically enter the connection carrying wounds from years of feeling misunderstood, overwhelmed by others' emotions, and exhausted from constant social performance. They see in each other not just a compatible partner, but a damaged soul who finally deserves the kind of care and understanding they've been giving everyone else. This mutual healing mission creates a psychological paradox that neither anticipated. INFJs are natural fixers. They instinctively want to absorb others' pain and transform it into something manageable. When two people with this compulsion find each other, they create a system where both are simultaneously the wounded patient and the exhausted therapist. Each partner becomes hypervigilant about the other's emotional state, constantly monitoring for signs of distress that require intervention. The energy depletion that results from this dynamic is staggering. Both INFJs are already operating with limited social and emotional reserves. Their high sensitivity means they need significant downtime to process daily experiences and recharge their psychological batteries. In a healthy relationship, partners would take turns providing emotional support, allowing each person periods of rest and recovery. But when both partners are compulsive caregivers, there's no natural rhythm of giving and receiving. Both are perpetually in caretaking mode, which means neither ever truly rests. The impossibility of finding genuine respite becomes a critical problem. INFJs need solitude not just to recharge, but to process the emotional data they've absorbed throughout the day. When both partners are highly sensitive, their shared living space becomes saturated with emotional intensity. Even during quiet moments, both are unconsciously monitoring each other's energy levels, ready to spring into helper mode at the first sign of distress. The sanctuary that should exist within their relationship becomes another environment requiring emotional management. Shared perfectionism compounds the exhaustion exponentially. Both INFJs typically hold themselves to impossibly high standards in every area of life, and this extends to their relationship performance. They don't just want to be good partners, they want to be perfect partners who never cause pain, never fail to provide support, and never fall short of their idealized vision of what love should look like. This creates unrealistic expectations that guarantee both partners will feel like failures when normal human limitations inevitably surface. The cycle becomes self-perpetuating in destructive ways. When one INFJ notices their partner struggling, they increase their caregiving efforts, which depletes their own resources and creates new stress. The partner picks up on this sacrifice and feels guilty, which generates additional emotional distress that requires more caregiving attention. Both people end up giving until they're completely empty, but there's no external energy source to replenish what they're pouring out. The most tragic aspect of this burnout loop is how it transforms the very qualities that initially attracted them to each other into sources of relationship strain. Their empathy becomes overwhelming absorption. Their desire to help becomes compulsive fixing. Their emotional intelligence becomes hypervigilant monitoring. The depth that felt like coming home becomes an exhausting ocean where both partners are drowning together. Two wounded healers often end up wounding each other, despite their best intentions. Not through malice or selfishness, but through the sheer impossibility of simultaneously being someone's salvation while desperately needing salvation themselves. The relationship that promised to finally provide rest and understanding becomes another arena where both partners perform emotional labor until they collapse from exhaustion. But here is the most dangerous part of the burnout cycle, something most INFJs are doing right now without even realizing it. Moral crusading, the shadow side of shared values. When two INFJs combine their righteous anger and shared moral vision, they create a force that can intimidate entire social groups without either partner fully recognizing what's happening. The same values that make them individually compassionate, justice, authenticity, protection of the vulnerable, become weaponized when filtered through their echo chamber of mutual validation. The transformation begins subtly. Both INFJs typically possess strong moral compasses and genuine concern for others' well-being. They see patterns of harm that others miss, recognize systemic problems that get ignored, and feel personally responsible for addressing injustices they encounter. When two people with this level of moral sensitivity validate each other's observations, their shared outrage gains momentum that feels both righteous and unstoppable. What starts as legitimate concern gradually evolves into something more problematic, a sense that they've been appointed as society's moral guardians. Their ability to see through people's facades and identify hidden motivations gets reframed as evidence of their superior ethical understanding. They begin viewing themselves as the awakened few who must guide or correct the morally blind masses around them. The danger lies not in their values themselves, but in how their shared certainty eliminates self-doubt and external accountability. When one INFJ questions whether they're being too harsh in their judgment, the other provides validation that confirms their righteousness. When one wonders if they might be missing important context, the other supplies additional evidence of others' moral failings. The internal checks and balances that might moderate individual judgment get overwhelmed by mutual reinforcement. Their combined psychological insights become tools for manipulation rather than healing. Both INFJs excel at reading people's insecurities, understanding their emotional triggers, and predicting their behavioral patterns. In healthy contexts, these abilities enable profound empathy and effective support. But when filtered through moral superiority, the same skills get deployed to expose others' weaknesses, highlight their hypocrisies, and demonstrate their ethical inadequacy. Now, this next part is the shadow side that no one wants to talk about. But it's the key to understanding why this duo can become so intimidating to everyone else. The intimidation factor emerges from their synchronized analysis and shared conviction. When two highly perceptive individuals reach identical conclusions about someone's character flaws or moral blind spots, their combined certainty becomes difficult to challenge or dismiss. They present their observations with such detailed accuracy and emotional intensity that others feel psychologically dissected and morally judged simultaneously. Their ability to see through people becomes judgmental rather than compassionate. Instead of using their insights to understand and help others navigate their struggles, they use them to categorize people into worthy versus unworthy camps. The nuanced thinking they're capable of gets replaced by rigid moral hierarchies, where anyone who doesn't meet their standards gets dismissed as part of the problem. The most insidious aspect of this moral crusading is how it masquerades as virtuous behavior. Both INFJs genuinely believe they're fighting for important principles and protecting vulnerable people from harm. Their intentions feel pure, their analysis seems sophisticated, and their emotional investment appears to prove their moral commitment. They mistake the intensity of their conviction for evidence of their righteousness. This dynamic creates what psychologists call ethical blindness, the temporary inability to see the ethical dimensions of their own behavior while remaining hypervigilant about others' moral failures. They become the very thing they claim to oppose, people who use their power and insight to judge, exclude, and manipulate others based on their own moral framework. The irony is devastating. Two individuals who entered their connection seeking authenticity and mutual understanding end up creating an environment where others feel unsafe to be genuine. Their sanctuary becomes a fortress from which they launch moral attacks on anyone who doesn't conform to their purified vision of how people should behave. Strategic advantages. The constructive power of the INFJ duo. Despite the significant risks we've explored, two INFJs who maintain conscious awareness of their psychological patterns can create something genuinely extraordinary, a partnership that leverages their combined strengths while mitigating their individual weaknesses. When both partners commit to healthy boundaries and external accountability, their connection becomes a force for authentic, positive change, rather than destructive intensity. The creative synergy that emerges between two conscious INFJs is unlike anything either could achieve alone. Both individuals typically arrive with visionary capabilities, seeing possibilities and solutions that others miss entirely. When these visionary tendencies combine without merging into codependent fusion, they create complementary strengths that cover each other's blind spots naturally. One INFJ might excel at big-picture conceptual thinking, while the other demonstrates superior attention to practical details. One might be stronger at emotional intelligence and interpersonal dynamics, while the other brings analytical rigor and systematic thinking. Instead of competing or trying to become identical, they develop specialized roles that maximize their collective effectiveness. Their pattern recognition abilities double in power when both systems cross-reference observations and validate insights. Complex social problems that might overwhelm a single INFJ become manageable when two minds can distribute the analytical load and confirm each other's intuitive hunches. They can solve relationship dynamics, organizational challenges, and systemic issues with unprecedented accuracy because they're processing information from multiple angles simultaneously. The healing potential that emerges when both partners maintain individual identity while supporting each other's growth creates a model for healthy depth that others can learn from. Instead of the codependent merger that characterizes unhealthy INFJ connections, conscious partnerships demonstrate how two people can be authentically themselves while creating something greater than the sum of their parts. Their combined ability to create meaningful projects and movements becomes exponentially more powerful when channeled through healthy collaboration rather than echo chamber validation. They can develop initiatives that address real social problems, create art that touches people's souls, and build organizations that operate from authentic values without sacrificing practical effectiveness. The key difference between dangerous and constructive INFJ partnerships lies in their relationship to external feedback and individual growth. Healthy INFJ duos actively seek diverse perspectives, welcome challenges to their assumptions, and maintain connections with people who think differently than they do. They use their deep connection as a foundation for engaging with the world, rather than a fortress for hiding from it. When two INFJs consciously harness their combined strengths while remaining vigilant about their shadow tendencies, they become capable of creating authentic, sustainable change that serves not just their own needs for depth and meaning, but contributes genuinely to the well-being of their communities and the world at large. The INFJ duo represents both humanity's greatest potential and its deepest pitfalls, wrapped into a single relationship dynamic. When two of these rare individuals find each other, they're holding something that could heal wounds, solve complex problems, and model authentic depth for others, or create an insular world of shared delusions and codependent intensity. The difference comes down to conscious awareness. Two INFJs who recognize these patterns can transform every danger we've discussed into strategic advantage. Echo chamber idealism becomes collaborative vision testing. Emotional fusion becomes conscious co-regulation. Moral crusading becomes principled action with external accountability. The key is maintaining individual identity while building something together, seeking diverse perspectives while honoring shared values, and using their connection as a launching pad for engaging with the world rather than hiding from it. When INFJs harness this power responsibly, they don't just find the deep connection they've been seeking. They become living proof that authentic relationships can exist without sacrificing truth, growth, or individual sovereignty. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos, where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.